Hello, I'm Jim Szymanski, Communications Director for the Washington Retail Association. Today we'd like to review for you some of the highlights from our interviews with legislators during the 2017 legislative session. It was a prolonged session with 3 overtime special sessions to meet school funding challenges and pass a state budget. Beyond all that, there were bills related to retailers that we'd like legislators to comment upon. First up is Senator Mike Padden, who got a bill passed to address organized retail crimes. He explained how the legislature learned that state statutes needed to be adjusted to prosecute more retail crime suspects.
Well, we regularly hear from law enforcement. We do hear from various retail establishments. And our staff reviews case law that the courts render in the form of opinions, mainly from our state Supreme Court, but also occasionally from the Court of Appeals, and came across a State v. Larson case which indicated that an ordinary pair of pliers was not a tool designed to overcome a security system. So it was a very narrow decision by the court, and we felt the results really weren't what we wanted for good public policy, so we saw it as an area to change, and we introduced legislation to have a broader definition so that people that are actually trying to overcome security systems and steal from retail establishments could be brought to justice.
Representative Mike Steele told us about a bill known as the Small Business Bill of Rights to better protect retailers during audits and state inspections.
Well, it would basically direct the Attorney General to look for ways to make it easier on small business to conduct business. So when you're thinking about a regulation, when you're looking at regulations, that legislation would help with efficiencies so that those efficiencies can be passed on to those small businesses that are struggling. We're trying to, in my mind, I came here to try and lessen the burden, reduce the regulation, look for ways to make these small businesses more profitable because, as I just mentioned, they are what's providing the backbone of these communities, and the more profitable they are, the more people they're going to employ, the more jobs they're going to create, and the more philanthropic they're going to be. And so I think it's a win-win situation. Obviously, as sales tax go up and the state's portion of that sales tax is realized, it's a win-win for everybody involved. So that's a big motivation.
We talked with Representative Ed Orcutt, who covered with us a variety of issues. He said recent store closures in his district near Oregon made it imperative to save the out-of-state sales tax exemption, and he emphasized that the state's improving revenues made it unnecessary for the legislature to raise any new taxes. Representative Mike Volz addressed the need to preserve the out-of-state sales tax exemption along Washington's borders with Oregon and Idaho, where taxes and prices are otherwise lower.
Well, we're already challenged. We're right next to Idaho, right next to Kootenai County. There's a wonderful Cabela's store right on the border, literally sits on top of the hill. You can see it from I-90, and when you can see it, it's about Idaho time. And that actually Cabela's was looking at getting into Spokane County. I think they were looking at a location in Liberty Lake when they were originally looking to locate to this area, and the tax and business environment was better in Idaho, so they chose to locate right across the border. Now, after that happened, there was a Walmart that came in right next to it, so there's already this loss of retail activity out of Washington State into Idaho, right across the border because of the business environment. I took the opportunity at one point during the campaign to drive out there just to get a sense of what that really meant. And anybody who's been to a Cabela's on a weekend, they're pretty packed, and the Walmart was pretty packed, and I kind of did an informal count, and about half the plates were from Washington State. So not only are we losing that retail activity and the sales tax for governments, we're actually exporting our tax dollars. And getting rid of that exemption would just absolutely be crushing, because there's certain types of shops in Spokane County that they may or may not have in Idaho, so they are coming across the border, and from Montana. Well, we want them, the folks from Montana to keep on driving through Idaho and come to Washington when you're looking to shop, and other areas. And that's true. And talking to my colleagues from any of the border states, it would be absolutely crushing for us.
An emerging issue in Washington is trying ideas to promote rural economic health. Senator Judy Warnick told us about a new law she sponsored to promote tourism on farms in rural areas with much higher unemployment rates than urban Washington. It would remove injury liability at farms interested in opening their grounds to activities such as horseback riding, fishing, camping, and picking crops.
Well, I call it the agritourism bill. We have a lot of agricultural producers out there that want to make just a little bit extra besides what they produce. And this bill was brought to me by a pumpkin farmer. They raise pumpkins, but a lot of people want to come out and pick those pumpkins themselves. Well, agriculture carries some inherent risks, and so we wanted to make sure that when folks come out, if they aren't careful and trip and fall, then there could be some liability issues. So this bill just helps those farmers through education, through signage, to help protect themselves when tourists and others come onto their property.
Make them a little more inclined. We also stopped by to interview Senator Guy Palumbo, who championed bills to curb organized retail crime. Palumbo is a small business owner who pledged to be a small business advocate to avoid expensive and questionable government regulations and explain how regulations affect and cost small businesses. He also pledged to try to make legislative decision makers more proactive so as to avoid costly overtime special legislative sessions. We met with John Koster about his attempts to shift rulemaking authority from departments to the legislature in hopes of reducing regulatory burdens on small businesses. He pledged to seek regulatory relief for small businesses regardless of resistance from some fellow legislators. Keep it alive by reintroducing.
I will not give up getting our arms around the rulemaking authorities agencies. It's one of the things that's driving the cost, and frankly, it's very onerous to small business.
This year, WRA opened a Seattle office at the Retail Industry Coalition of Seattle to help businesses anticipate and react to regulations put forth by the City Council. We interviewed Director John Engber and his field director, Nina Drzezinski. John explained how the coalition will operate to better engage retailers with city government.
You're right. People who operate their own business don't have a lot of extra time on their hands to learn about and track what's going on in city government. So our goal is to be a good, dependable source of information for the kinds of policy issues that are being discussed in City Hall that could impact the retail businesses. And then help those businesses that want to have their voice be heard, help them figure out how they can best invest their time to have the biggest impact on the development of that policy. Whether it's a meeting with the mayor or a meeting with a city council member testifying before the city council, we want to help them figure out how they can have the biggest bang for the buck for the hour or two that they're willing to invest.
Well, give us a little. Finally, we met with Senator Michael Baumgardner. He explained that while the legislature meets part-time every year, retailers need to be engaged with them year-round to effectively anticipate and shape legislation.
We need the employer community, including retailers, to speak up frequently. We need them to be active year-round. This is not just a legislative session issue. They have to be active year-round in all parts of the political process, and just to remember that this is their government, and you get the government you deserve.
That's our summary of key events affecting retailers and the state economy from the 2017 legislative session. To follow developments year-round, go to our website, retailassociation.org, or follow our social media updates on Twitter, @WRRetail, and Facebook. Thanks for watching.